Hello, friends. Welcome back to Love Wrestling. I love covering things in professional wrestling that get me excited, make me enthusiastic about the business that both you and I love. And music is one big part, the biggest part in professional wrestling by my money. And I've got someone who has been very influential in that over the last couple of years. Ian Abel joining me on the show, the founder, the head, the guitarist, the singer, the so much more behind the Ian Abel Band. And for you AEW fans out there, which I know a lot of you guys are, someone who I know you have heard over a number of AEW pay-per-views. Ian, we're going to get into that in a second, man. But how are you doing, friend? Thank you for taking the time for me today. It's super cool to talk to you.
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for giving me a time to talk and come on and hang out. And hopefully I don't screw this up.
Well, if it wasn't for accidents, I wouldn't be alive. So even if there are screw ups, sometimes I think they can be a pretty positive thing, but I might be a little bit biased on that end of things. Like I said, thanks, Mom and Dad. I appreciate you going to a Beach Boys concert, but that's neither here nor there. Man, like I said, it's super cool to talk to you. I got actually into your music because of your first appearance in AEW lore, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, with Spotify, with so many ways to acquire new music nowadays. Like quite literally, that Cody versus Dustin promo came on and it was like, Siri, what song is this? So I've been a fan in some way, shape, or form for a couple of years. So it is, again, very cool to talk to you. We are a wrestling-based platform. Maybe there are some people who don't know about the Ian Abel Band or what you guys are doing in music today. So I guess give the elevator pitch. What are you? Who are you? What do you love to do in the music scene?
Oh, what are we? A band of misfits, really. um, who are we? God, we're still trying to figure that out. No, we're so currently I'm moving to Nashville because of everything is going on. The band's kind of spread out right now, but we'll be based out of Nashville starting out, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, we're more of a like I call it modern day like outlaw country, which outlaw country you'd think like Waylands and people, and so if someone hears us, they'd be like, I don't know about that, but I don't know, man. We're just a bunch of musicians just trying to write about what I guess what we go through. I try to keep it all pretty personal, and I never sit down and think this is exactly how things are going to be. I would never imagine that I would have a song used in such an awesome way, two songs used, but especially with like shoes for the brother versus brother match. And I don't know if that answered your question, but as far as who we are, I'm still trying to figure that out, I think.
Well, and I think it actually answers it perfectly, confusingly, I guess, enough, because it's a very wide open sense of the phrase. But a lot of the influences, at least that you've said in interviews before, that seems to be sort of their modus operandi as well, right? My Morning Jacket, the Racket Tours, Lucas Nelson, which is a great artist, but I think a lot of people had turned to Willie as sort of where they plant their flag. It's a very wide array of artists, right? Even when you say previously that you want to try and be Metallica punching Leonard Skinner in the face. I think a lot of those, though, really do tie into the professional wrestling sense of things. I want to start with the most recent addition to the, I guess, pro wrestling repertoire, though, because when you wrote, or I guess when you commented last on Not Afraid to Die, you said that that was the song that you first thought was going to get picked up by AEW. So maybe give me a little bit of history on that and why you thought it was so cool and why I think a lot of pro wrestling fans thought it was so cool to see it featured at Full Gear 2020.
I think, I think that it was used better at Full Gear.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd been talking to Cody and Brandy, and Michael Kulari was in the conversation, and then a few other emails. I have no idea who they are. They're behind the scenes people. And, so here I am talking to these people, and I'm thinking we're talking about the song "Not Afraid to Die," because I'd went in after I sent them shoes and I sent them a couple others to show that like what we kind of sound like. And I went in that weekend with my friend John Graber and another buddy Reed, and I'd written the chords, I'd written the melodies, I'd written the lyrics, everything was there. And we just went in and said, okay, let's figure this out. And we pretty much laid everything down, and what you hear on Not Afraid to Die, we did in one day, and which is pretty cool to get in there. And I mean, my friends are incredible at engineers and mixers, and so I got lucky there. But we just laid down the acoustic, sang a vocal that I thought was going to be like a scratch track to then recut, and John was like, "Nah, man, that's it, dude." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Right. And then
the Georgia satellites theory, right?
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, okay, crap. I would have sang better. I don't know." But and so then we mixed it, and I sent it over Sunday. Monday we start talking more, and that's when we're leading up to Double or Nothing. And I'm thinking the whole time that we're talking about Not Afraid to Die, and then actually Cody emails me all caps and says, "I want shoes." And I said, "Oh, okay, this is different. I'm not prepared." Brandon, get some shoes, okay?
But whatever you want, boss.
I was like, yeah, that's totally fine. That's interesting, and it worked out better. But what was cool about it at Full Gear is that I think the song thematically, not only because I wrote it with Cody in mind, I spent one evening. I was like, screw it, I'm gonna write this dude a song, send it to him, show him what I got right off the bat. And so I'm writing it thinking about Cody and the Rhodes family. And now you got Darby in it too, in the promo and in the match. And you're like, it worked. I think it worked better to me than it would have at the brother versus brother match.
Yeah, man, I don't disagree at all. But to touch on sort of the point that I wanted to make that really draws me to both your music and I guess you as a person is, again, right off the bat, I mentioned that sort of the thing with Love Wrestling is that we want to pursue what we love in professional wrestling, and a part of that and a part of the professional wrestling industry in general, I guess, is just the mentality of shoot your shot. And I think if anybody, you really personify that, because if your interviews are correct, which I'm talking to the source itself, you quite literally just emailed Brandy Rhodes and said, "Hey, here are a few songs." Am I right?
Yeah. So I think I put because we released Walkout and it was good. And it was our first, we recorded that song in a day too, because we were preparing to do an album, and we're like, let's test one song and see how we would do. And we knocked it out in a day, and we're like, oh, okay, we can do this.
This is badass.
Yeah. So I sent that to her, and I think I wrote in the email something like, I know this is, I've taken a shot or something along those lines. I was like, but so is, going head to head with a monopolized giant. So I assumed I would go ahead and I'll shoot my shot. And essentially it's something more eloquently said was in that email. And she wrote me back in like 15 minutes and said she liked it. She showed her husband already. And I was like, I know who your husband is. Like, okay, this is cool. And then now suddenly I'm on the email chain with like 6 other people. And I'm like, oh, this is for real. Okay. This is interesting.
It's very cool. And I was going to ask, and you sort of answered already, but how familiar were you with both Cody and Dustin prior to getting involved with AEW? I know you've mentioned loving Dusty Rhodes and growing up with OVW and just being a wrestling fan overall, but both Cody and Dustin, I think a lot of wrestling fans, I know it's not a unique point on my end, but have really, really come into their own, obviously, since about 2017, 2018. So how familiar were you prior to, and how cool has it just been to work with 2 legends in the industry? Let's not make any bones about it.
I've been, I'm super honored that that Cody would not have me for 1 match, but 2, and as well as to be a part of that epic match, like beyond honored, because aside from even if I'd never worked with them, big fans of just the Rhodes family in general. They're trailblazing. When you think of, every sport or every entertainment, everything has certain families, even though we don't have royal families in America, there's the Obamas, the Bushes, the Clintons, there's certain people, the Kennedys, they're kind of like our royal families, and the Rhodes
right up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Rhodeses are royalty in the wrestling world and will always be. And so, for instance, Dustin was given a character that pretty much would have failed with I'm pretty sure, unless with Gold Dust.
If it wasn't him, it wouldn't have gone anywhere, and that's a full compliment to him, not anything against anyone else.
Yeah, they threw him a character. I don't know why, probably to try to bury him. I don't know. They threw him this difficult character, and he's like, I'm just gonna knock this out of the park real quick. Hold on. And that, no big deal. No big deal. And now Cody and them, so they do All In, right? And because everyone's like, oh, they can never do this. And they get together, these, indie guys, and they're like, watch this. We're going to sell this out in a short amount of time. We're going to put on some of the best matches. We're going to fight for the NWA championship. Like, those dudes are trailblazers, and they are legends, and they're Hall of Fame, and they just kind of, I mean, Cody's on that show now on it's on TNT or whatever. The
Go Big show.
Yeah, with Snoop Dogg and them or whatever. Like he's so money, but he knows it,
And again, that's a full compliment to him. If you've got it, flaunt it. Why not, right? Yeah. I think you made a really good point there too, in that as far as it goes with royal families, to steal your phrase, they're right up there. How much did it mean to you then, or how cool was it for you to work with Darby Allin? Because I think a lot of pro wrestling fans, as you've said you are, know how good he is, but maybe again, until AEW came around, people really weren't familiar with him on a major level. How cool is it for you to be a part of his ascent, for lack of a better cliche for it?
Oh, I mean, it's awesome, because I remember I knew a little bit about Darby in the Indies, but then you see him on AEW and you're like, holy crap, because some people come over and they get on national television and they do well, and then other people get on there and they just soar. And and he's one of them. Orange Cassidy's one of them. Scorpio Sky has stepped it up even more, and like MJF is another one. So to work with someone like Darby, who kids, they paint their face when they go to the shows, this, I don't want to say rising star. He is, because he is a star still, but to be a part of his, I guess, ascent, he won the TNT championship on the pay-per-view that my song was the promo for, that had Steve-O in it. You're just throwing all these awesome things. I mean, I was
just going to say, I feel like we're around the same age. I feel like when anybody mentions Steve-O or Knoxville, it's like, oh my.
Yeah. Steve-O, and like, obviously people will say whatever they want about anyone, but Steve-O is a trailblazer in his own right, in a completely different format. I mean, I remember going to see Jackass in the theaters, and you're like, I can't believe this is happening.
These guys are going out of their way to injure each other, and it's not presented as a sport.
Like, this is wild. Okay.
But I think, again, it's a cool comparison. You've used the word trailblazer a couple of times, but the one that really stuck with me as far as it goes for you is outlaw, because, again, you mentioned Steve-O or Darby Allin, but I think it's something that really applies to you and just the Ian Abel Band as a whole. You guys have gone through a few membership changes as is, but this last lineup has been together for pretty well the entirety of, I guess, your AEW run. What do you think makes this sort of iteration or this format of the band your most successful, or I guess the most the best version of yourselves?
Well, musicians are quite fickle people. I don't know if anyone has ever said that before, but you can have incredible musicians in a room, and there's incredible bands that don't stick together, at the height of their abilities. So I've been blessed to find people that are not only incredible musicians, but like, the most important thing is the hang, is what people say. Who do you want to, what do they say at Google? It's like who do you want to be stuck in a airport with or whatever? It's like, who do you want to be stuck on a tour bus with? And so first you have to find people that are incredible musicians and that bring their own artistic value, but also they're just such funny people. Like, I mean, the hilarious, everyone's so different in their own right. I've known Wes for a long time. I've known Karthik. Actually, Karthik told me no back in 2017. I talked to him once before, and he was switching jobs, and he had something else going on. He's like, I don't really have time. And I was like, okay. I was like, right when I was forming the band at first, and I was like, that's fine. And then we got linked back up. I mean, Kenny, they're all such incredible musicians, well-trained, so creative, but they're just such great people to be around that it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah. It makes sense, man. Why would you be going back and forth? Or you've mentioned you live in Nashville, I guess, full time, quote unquote, at this point. Why would that be in the middle of a pandemic? I guess it seems like, at least as an outsider, that LA would be the sort of hot spot or mecca, or again, whatever big cliche you want to put on it for any aspiring musician. Nashville, of course, has a huge country scene and they've got a great music scene in its own right. But it almost would seem like it's going from one to the other in
Yeah.
a middle of a pandemic, for lack of a better way to put it.
So Los Angeles is still, I mean, really shut down. And besides what people, whether they agree or disagree, it was just the big thing for me is that opportunity wasn't in Los Angeles anymore. A lot of the venues that we'd played had shut down. Luckily, a lot of the mainstays that we played are still there. Now I got to find out if the bookers are still in the city, or if they up and moved or switched jobs altogether, and they're in a completely new field. So my thing is that the opportunity in Nashville seems to be a little bit more available, and I still will, like, I'm gonna fly back in May and later this year. We're gonna record more and things like that. So we're very fortunate to be able to live in a time where we can do that, and we're not stuck to just one spot.
Absolutely. And again, it seems like a very, very cool, might not be the right word when you're having to pick and choose where you're going to work, but it's another cool comparison to the world of professional wrestling, in the sense that even you mentioned that you got to find out if the bookers are still working. I know that a lot of professional wrestlers out there can speak to that same point, man. Yeah. As far as it goes on the professional wrestling side of things, I touched on it off the bat that music is such an integral part of it. I know you've done music for Cody and Dustin and Darby, but if you were to specifically write an entrance theme for one professional wrestler, who would it be, or who would they be? I'll maybe limit you to 3 because I know one can be tough.
3. Oh, okay. Anna Jay, because
great call.
Different. Anna Jay, I think she's incredible. She's also super gorgeous, and I follow on Twitter. She seems awesome, and I think she's gonna be huge. I think she's going to be a household name sooner than later. Also, let's see, Orange Cassidy. I'm a huge Cassidy guy. Big time Orange Cassidy fan. I think I could write a sick one for him. And it's another one. Let's go. Screw it. Let's go MJF. I think
why not?
I could write something real obnoxious, I think.
I was gonna say, to go back to that outlaw comparison, he's an outlaw in a very interesting way, I suppose, in a lot of ways, right?
Well, I guess Hangman would be the smartest one. Besides Anna Jay, Hangman probably be the smartest as far as music that we write. I would like a
and he's got some fantastic music as is, man, which I think that of anybody who could do it, I'm biased, but I think of anybody who could top that, man, Ian Abel and his band would be able to do so. Orange Cassidy, again, I've got to touch on because he's just such a fun professional wrestler. He exemplifies the love of professional wrestling. I know you've gone out to a few championship wrestling from Hollywood shows, and another guy that I think exemplifies that is Gentleman Jervis. I know you've talked about Nick Aldis before too, so let's just take the chance to shine the light on a couple of great people in professional wrestling, and perhaps maybe a few more that you love from championship wrestling or elsewhere in the independent professional wrestling scene. Who are some favorites of Ian Abel?
I'm such a mark for Nick Aldis. Like, beyond I'm a big fan. I like the Dawsons too over on
cool.
NWA.
Yeah.
I've gotten, this is gonna be so weird. There's what is it called? It's USA Championship Wrestling. It's Tennessee. I think Burt Prentice runs it. I followed their YouTube for a while, and there's a guy on there. Everyone's gonna think I'm crazy. His name was, I don't know if he still wrestles, but it was Kid Wrestling. And the dude is a worker. He is such a worker. I got to give a shout out to him because I don't know if anyone else will, but I'm going to do it right now. Kid Wrestling deserves to be on AEW Dark and get beat up by Lance Archer or somebody. That's going to be the most random one. But Nick Aldis, as far as I want to see Nick Aldis crossover and have matches with AEW and again, I guess technically for the first time, but
Hey man, I don't disagree. And it's always nice when I'm interviewing a musician and I still get to break wrestling exclusives because personally, I've never heard of Kid Wrestling. And I am always so excited to be able to get the opportunity to check out new professional wrestlers, as I've had the opportunity to do a very new thing for me today and chat with the musician. The one slightly random, but will also transition nicely to plugging all of your social media handles and where people can keep track of the Ian Abel Band. Tell me a little bit about your store on Below the Collar, because I know they're affiliated with Pro Wrestling Tees, but admittedly, I'm not all that familiar with Below the Collar themselves. So here's again, just another opportunity to plug some great people and, of course, where people can help support some great people like yourself in the future.
we just got approved to have a store there, and they're pretty wrestling adjacent because there's a small metal band called Fozzy. I don't know if you've heard of them, but
Once or twice.
Judas. I think it's a wrestler's theme. I'm not sure, but
I think it's popped up on Dark.
Yeah, definitely. So Fozzy's on there, which is awesome. And yes, they pretty much are the same store, except Pro Wrestling Tees is Pro Wrestling Tees, and this is anything, I guess, adjacent to it. So we're getting merch put out now since we just got approved, which I'm stoked about because I really love the Pro Wrestling Tees way of doing business, which obviously, I mean, they revolutionized kind of the game there for pro wrestlers, you know. And what's the craziest thing is that the guy who owns Pro Wrestling Tees is actually, and I didn't know this till after we got approved, a friend of the person who's been doing our most recent designs, like the one behind me, for that and another song called Barely Hanging On and a couple of others. He does our designs and stuff, and they're actually friends. And of course they are in Chicago, which also has our biggest fan base. So I'm like, it's weird. Everything kind of, 6 degrees of separation or whatever.
I was just going to say, it's been very cool for me because there are a lot of assumptions people can make when they're doing research or hopping into something like this for the first time. But it's been cool to sort of have it reinforced how similar, I guess, that the worlds of professional wrestling and professional music and musicians are. It's been very cool for me to even just get the opportunity to chat with someone whose music that I have really enjoyed for a long time. And if anybody out there wants to get the opportunity to enjoy some great music out there, Ian Abel and his band are the place to do so. So Ian, where can people find you online if they want to keep track of what you're up to in the near future?
All of our handles are at Ian Abel Band, IANABEL Band, not ABLE. Like the Whiskey Go-Go once wrote up on the thing. I had the marquee. Adam changed it. Every social is the same. We're on there. We're on all of them. Try to keep them updated. We got a website, ianabel.band. That's it. We're always on there and trying to figure out TikTok. I'm not doing any dances. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that one out, but we're there too. Follow us.
Let me tell you, of anybody who is like patently uncool, I would fall firmly into that category. You think I'm going to try any choreographed dances? It isn't for me, my friend, but I can guarantee if I create an account, you'll be one of the first follows because this has been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for the time today. And thank you to anybody who's tuned in and stayed around for my outro. I know I tend to ramble at these portions, but I'm always so excited getting the chance to chat with great people as Ian was today. Follow his socials, support him, support the Ian Abel Band, and of course, support All Elite Wrestling. Make sure you tweet him and tell him that the music in some of their promos is really good. Because if you want more of that, you want more of Ian Abel on Love Wrestling, then make sure you support him in any possible way you can. I've been Spencer Love. Thanks once again for tuning in, friends. We'll catch you on the next one.